When women were invited to the Playboy Mansion, many later said that part of the deal was unspoken. You were expected to sleep with Hugh Hefner. Some of them admitted they had no idea what was going to happen that first night, especially since Hefner was known for keeping secrets. After his death in 2017, shocking details began to emerge about what really went on in his famous mansion. Hidden cameras had been installed as far back as the late 1970s, recording guests without their knowledge. Former girlfriends revealed that the basement was filled with tapes and adult material that Hefner allegedly used to control or manipulate people. Reports even mentioned a vault that contained FBI files, showing that Hefner had been investigated for decades. By 2022, more than 10 lawsuits were filed by people who discovered they had been secretly filmed. The so-called parties in the mansion's basement were not just about entertainment. They were hiding serious crimes that would leave a stain on Hollywood's history forever. Hugh Marston Hefner was born on April 9, 1926, in Chicago, Illinois. He grew up in a very strict household. His parents were devoted Methodists who avoided showing affection and believed movies, dancing, and anything connected to sex were wrong. That cold, emotionless environment shaped young Hugh in ways no one could have predicted. Even as a child, he would secretly draw pictures of women in revealing clothing, pushing against the rules of his household. Later in life, he explained that the lack of love and warmth in his family made him crave freedom, both emotional and physical. Everything he created seemed to be a rebellion against the repressive world he grew up in. Despite having a very high IQ of 152, his school grades were only average. His real strength was his imagination. While attending Sayre Elementary, he began writing comic books where he placed himself as the hero in adventurous stories. When he was 16, he experienced his first heartbreak with a girl named Betty. The pain affected him so deeply that he reinvented himself. He started calling himself Heg, changed his style of clothing, and created a comic strip called School Days about his own teenage life. This was in 1942, and it showed for the first time how he could turn personal pain into creative work. At Steinmetz High School, he kept chasing new ideas. In 1943, he launched the school newspaper, the Steinmetz Trumpet. He served as both reporter and cartoonist, combining words with drawings that made people laugh while sharpening his writing style. He also joined the student council, sang in the school band, and constantly looked for ways to perform. Although Betty's rejection still haunted him, it also motivated him to work harder and keep creating stories where he was in control. After graduating in 1944, his love for creativity stayed with him. Decades later, in 2010, he started donating $7,500 a year to the same school newspaper so that students could print in color. Even at 84 years old, he remembered what those early years meant to him. In 2016, when the paper faced censorship issues, he stepped in again, showing that his passion for free expression had never faded. In June 1944, Hefner joined the U.S. Army during World War II. He trained at Fort Hood in Texas and earned a sharpshooter badge with the M1 rifle. However, instead of being sent to the battlefield, his strong typing skills got him a desk job in Maryland. He later admitted that this was a lucky break. While many soldiers risked their lives overseas, he was safe in Washington, spending time with women and drawing cartoons for military newsletters. He believed that if he had gone into combat, his creative career, and even Playboy, might never have happened. After leaving the Army in 1946, he enrolled at the University of Illinois. He studied psychology and added minors in creative writing and art. He worked so quickly that he completed his degree in just 2.5 years. While there, he became editor of the campus humor magazine Shaft and introduced a new section called Co-Ed of the Month. It was controversial but hinted at what would later become the central idea of Playboy. In 1949, he briefly attended Northwestern University for graduate school, but he left after criticizing America's restrictive sex laws in a paper. He didn't want to follow rules. He wanted to challenge them. That same year, he also studied at the Chicago Art Institute, where he blended his love for drawing and writing. By 1952, Hefner was working at Esquire magazine, earning only $60 a week. When he asked for a small raise of just $5 and was denied, he quit in frustration. Determined to create something new, he mortgaged his furniture for $600 and raised another $8,000 from 45 investors, including $1,000 from his mother. Although she didn't agree with his project, she believed in him enough to help. Originally, he wanted to name his magazine Stag Party, but legal threats forced him to change it. That's when he came up with the name Playboy. The very first issue was assembled in his small Hyde Park kitchen in Chicago. When it was released in December 1953, Hefner was so unsure of its future that he didn't even put a date on the cover. He didn't know if there would be a second issue. He bought nude photographs of Marilyn Monroe for just $500. The pictures had been taken in 1949, years before she became a Hollywood icon. Monroe herself never worked with Hefner and never posed for Playboy again, but that famous image of her lying on red velvet, eyes closed and lips slightly parted, became legendary. The first issue sold nearly 54,000 copies at 50 cents each. Alongside Monroe's photo, Hefner included articles on jazz, sports, and even a Sherlock Holmes reprint. He wanted readers to see the magazine as more than just about women. It was also about lifestyle, culture, and ideas. Today, original copies of that first issue can sell for over $100,000. Hefner personally wrote the first editorial, describing the magazine as entertainment for men that would feature fashion, fiction, music, and women. Soon, major writers began contributing. Ray Bradbury published a story in the magazine, and in 1955 Hefner caused controversy by printing Charles Beaumont's story about a world where heterosexuals were discriminated against. It flipped real-life oppression on its head, and though it angered many readers, Hefner refused to back down. That same year, he gave opportunities to new voices, including hiring Dick Gregory, a black comedian he discovered performing in Chicago. For Dick Gregory, getting hired by Playboy was his first real break. By that time, the magazine was already selling over 100,000 copies each month. But Hefner's fight to keep his empire alive was only just beginning. In 1955, the U.S. Postal Service tried to ban Playboy, calling it obscene. Hefner refused to back down and took the battle to court. He eventually won, and that victory allowed him to expand quickly. Soon the magazine was printing in full color and attracting some of the biggest names in the world. Writers and artists like Vladimir Nabokov and even John Lennon contributed. Hefner's bold moves often got him into trouble. In 1963, he was arrested for publishing nude photos of actress Jane Mansfield, but the case ended with a hung jury. Years earlier, in 1959, he had launched a television show called Playboy's Penthouse. Designed to look like a party at his own apartment, it featured celebrities like Sammy Davis Jr. and Ella Fitzgerald. At the time, it was groundbreaking because it showed black and white guests socializing together on screen. Many TV stations in the American South refused to air it because of racism, but Hefner ignored the backlash and pushed ahead. By 1960, Hefner opened the first Playboy Club in Chicago. People rushed to buy expensive key-holder memberships just to get inside. The waitresses, called bunnies, wore tight satin costumes with bunny ears and tails. Behind the scenes, however, their lives were far from glamorous. They had to follow strict rules about their appearance, including maintaining a certain weight. If they failed, they were punished. Despite that, the Chicago Club exploded in popularity, welcoming over 132,000 visitors in just 3 months. Before long, there were 40 Playboy clubs worldwide, in cities as far away as London and even Jamaica. Between 1962 and 1965, Hefner wrote a long-running series of essays called The Playboy Philosophy. Across about 250,000 words, he shared his views on free speech, abortion rights, sex laws, and personal freedom. Some people praised him as a bold thinker challenging outdated morals. But feminist groups accused him of using intellectual arguments to disguise the exploitation of women. Protests started, and former employees later admitted that the glamorous image hid a darker reality. Many women working for Hefner lived under strict, humiliating rules, and reports of abuse were already beginning to surface. By 1964, Playboy had gone public and was worth $120 million. Hefner still kept control of most of it. That same year, He bought a massive 70-room mansion in Chicago for $370,000. The mansion was filled with secret tunnels, a swimming pool with a waterfall entrance, and rooms covered in mirrors and lights. It became the center of his wild parties, especially after his divorce. Hundreds of guests came, including Hollywood stars, and the FBI kept a close watch during investigations into obscenity. Years later, women revealed that many of those parties were not just glamorous but dangerous. Some said they were drugged, pressured into sex acts, or secretly filmed without their consent. These claims continued to surface decades later, even in documentaries released in 2022. Hefner wasn't content with magazines and clubs. In 1968, he created Playboy Productions to enter the movie industry. One of their first major projects was Macbeth in 1971, directed by Roman Polanski, who was grieving the loss of his wife Sharon Tate. The film's violent and dark tone brought attention, but Hefner's company eventually produced more than 20 films, including St. Jack in 1979. On the surface, the Playboy brand was stronger than ever, but behind the scenes, scandals and dark rumors continued to build. Hefner's personal life was just as complicated. He married his first wife, Millie Williams, in 1949, after meeting her at Northwestern University. Believing she was the love of his life, he saved himself for her until marriage. But while Hefner was serving in the army, Millie confessed to having an affair. That betrayal devastated him, and he later said it was the most painful moment of his life. To try to repair the marriage, Millie allowed him to sleep with other women, but the arrangement only created more problems. They divorced in 1959 after 10 years of marriage. Together they had 2 children, Christy, born in 1952, and David, born in 1955. At first, the children even took the last name of Millie's new husband, Edwin Gunn, but eventually returned to the name Hefner. After the divorce, Hugh Hefner completely transformed.